Well, I mean, nobody, they wouldn't call me. So,
Foundations of Learning, Chapter 1.
let me throw this way back. Chapter 6. Well,
I think Chapter 5 is this section here. Chapter 5, so that is 6. You copied all this? It's special kind of paper.
Yeah.
You copied it or you buy it?
no, this is all, this is from,
Yeah, I said. That isn't the same thing.
so what I was trying to do was get all this stuff on a PDF so we could just kind of cruise through. Here, just add that to the back.
These are the answer keys?
Yeah. Why don't you go sit over on that side? Let me see your face. Check it out.
Good guy.
Cool.
So today we're going to be going over one section A and B, watch a video. Class discussion we get done. The objectives today, become familiar with learning theories, including the principles of learning process and how they are applied to the flight training.
All right, hot damn.
Any questions so far? Okay.
Yeah, is there going to be a break in the middle?
Yes. Break time. We're at the middle. We're there. Understanding the experience. If related, become familiar with characteristics of learning, learning styles, domains of learning, and transfer of learning. So section learning define behavior, cognitive theory, instruction.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Are you recording right now?
Yep.
Really?
Yep, we're live actually.
Why are you live right now? It's still going. Turn the thing on. Next one over.
What?
The next one over. Reading attention. Are we gonna start over again? Like, they're not coming, are they?
Look at your face. Oh, you're looking at it? There you go.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kai. Sorry. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Kai Kelaziski, Chief Flight Instructor for Cool Air, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We're going to start with Flight Instructor Ground Syllabus, Stage 1, Section A and B, Discovering Learning Theories and Exploring Learning Styles and Domains. We'll get started with that, and then we're going to go into a short DVD video to explain in more depth of the stuff we're going to be covering here. So the objectives: we'll become familiar with learning theories, including the principles and learning process and how they are applied to flight training. Understand how each of the components of the learning process are interrelated. Become familiar with the characteristics of learning styles, domains of learning, and the transfer of learning. So we'll get started. Get our book here. And we'll start in Chapter 1, Section A. We'll start here in the back, going over basically a summary of summary checklist, what we'll be covering. Learning is defined as persistent change of behavior resulting from experience from the environment that cannot be attributed to the natural growth. The theory of behaviorism, study of measurement of observable behavior. Operative conditions generally consist of 3 phases: cues to initiate the behavior and provide the behavior is actually performed, and the consequences associated with that performance are received. Reinforcements is the consequences that strengthen behavior. 4 types of reinforcements have been identified that you can use as flight instructors. That's positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, extinction and punishment, and the positive reinforcement students learn is normally the most successful approach. The primary methods of teaching behaviors and shaping and chaining. Each time your students demonstrate the correct behavior, you provide positive reinforcement that helps shape or develop the correct behavior. Chaining combines behavior students assemble more complex behaviors. Cognitive theory is involved mental process such as decision making and problem solving, which are difficult to observe or measure. If your students can explain how and why they do something, you can gain valuable insight into these mental processes that are used. The social interaction model stresses the concept that the students learn to shape their conduct after prevailing behavior. Do you
want me to start the video?
There you were.
No, I mean the video.
Okay. All right. The social interaction model stresses the concept that students learn to shape. Are they here? So I guess here we go. We'll start the video.
Yeah.
All right.
Is it going?
Yeah.
Oh. What is that textbook? Because the syllabus, I think, the way it does it,
Yep.
It says, okay, these are the textbook, what we're going to cover, and then this. So I don't know if we're supposed to, because stage lesson 2 is over here.
Yeah, I'm just reading the summary for Section A, and then read Section B,
Okay.
and then kind of go through the chapters and start the video. We can do it this way.
Sorry. So the first 2 are.
I have often said that the lure of flying is the lure of beauty, that the reason flyers fly, whether they know it or not, is the aesthetic appeal of flying.
Two-town?
Amelia Earhart.
Looks like it. Yeah.
As a flight instructor, you have the opportunity to help others experience the beauty of flight.
The mediocre teacher tells. The good teacher explains. The superior teacher demonstrates. The great teacher inspires. William A. Ward.
As a teacher, you not only have the ability to impart knowledge, you can also inspire and make dreams come true.
The cockpit was my office. It was a place where I experienced many emotions and learned many lessons. It was a place of work, but also a keeper of dreams.
Arizona?
Brian Schuler.
Sure.
Flight instructing allows you to turn your passion for aviation
So is it
into
recording
your
us now or just
profession.
that?
What better
They're recording
office
us now or
window
just that?
exists than the
Just that.
windscreen of an airplane?
So you didn't want me to finish this
Up
first?
to this point in your aviation
I
career,
understand. That's
you
fine. It's already
focused
started now.
primarily on becoming a better pilot by increasing your aviation knowledge and improving your flying skills. During your journey toward becoming a certificated flight instructor, CFI, you learn how to pass on your knowledge and skills. The process begins with exploring basic learning theories and teaching techniques. Understanding the brain's ability to receive and store information, as well as
See what I did in
examining individual
1974?
learning styles and the communication
Definitely.
process
Yeah, like a-
lays the basic foundation necessary to become a successful teacher. In addition, early in your CFI training, you learn how to plan lessons and discover a wide variety of teaching methods. And you study the most effective ways to critique and evaluate performance. While you acquire an understanding of the foundations of learning and teaching, you also begin learning to operate the airplane from the right seat. At first, flying from the right seat may feel awkward to you, but your instructor helps you adjust to the changes in orientation you experience, such as your view of the instrument panel. For example, your interpretation of an airspeed, altitude, or heading when looking at the instruments from an angle differs from the information seen on the displays from straight ahead. Also, you must adjust to changes in visual references outside the airplane when performing such maneuvers as steep turns or landings. With practice, you soon master both private and commercial maneuvers from the right seat. In addition to performing maneuvers from the right seat, you must also complete specific spin training required for flight instructor applicants. After you've learned the fundamentals of learning and teaching and have become proficient at controlling the airplane from the right seat, you are introduced to practice instruction. First, your instructor asks you to develop lesson plans for ground and flight instruction sessions. On the ground, you explain concepts to your instructor as you would to a student. During flight lessons, you describe and demonstrate maneuvers and procedures. Then your instructor performs maneuvers while making specific errors to simulate a student's actions. For example, to illustrate an error common to beginning students, your instructor might use improper control input to correct for a crosswind on final approach. In the case of basic attitude instrument flight, your instructor may intentionally fail to lead the rollout to a heading. When practicing commercial maneuvers, your instructor may introduce a very subtle error by using a little too much rudder pressure during a chandelle. You are expected to identify these errors and respond appropriately, perhaps by explaining or demonstrating the correct procedures. Finally, you must provide a critique of the performance and suggest means of improvement. It requires practice to become an effective instructor, especially in the cockpit where you experience a high workload. To maintain flight safety, you must be able to divide your attention between explaining procedures,
So who's coming over,
controlling
you said?
the airplane,
Ken
and monitoring your students'
Lori.
actions. As you continue to practice teaching, both in the air and on the ground, you develop techniques to effectively instruct a wide variety of students. For example, when training beginning students,
It's
you
got-
concentrate on basic flying skills and help students overcome apprehension regarding maneuvers such as slow flight, stalls, takeoffs, and landings. You should be especially alert to issues such as collision avoidance, since beginners are normally completely focused on their assigned flying task. On the other hand, when you work with commercial students, You should emphasize the very precise flying skills needed to perform advanced maneuvers. You should also help your commercial students develop a professional attitude regarding flight operations. Once you've acquired the ability to explain procedures, demonstrate maneuvers, provide effective critiques, and properly evaluate student performance, you are ready to take the practical test. When you've successfully completed your check ride with your CFI certificate in hand, a new world of opportunities opens up to you. You may decide to enhance your flight instructing career by adding an instrument or a multi-engine rating to your certificate. You can expand your aviation knowledge and add variety to your instructing activities by giving specialized instruction. For example, providing flight reviews and
Test goals, so just
instrument
record
proficiency checks
just
helps
that
other
now.
pilots maintain
All the
their
information is
currency.
recorded on that now.
Transition training and tail
That's what I was
wheel
trying to do.
instruction,
Webinars.
as well as complex and high-performance checkouts, all provide opportunities to instruct in a wide variety of airplanes. You may also enjoy providing regional
Yeah, but I don't
checkouts
get
to
those.
pilots new
How
to
does
your
that go
area,
with?
or you may find it exciting to conduct
this?
mountain flying lessons. If you're an enthusiast of aerobatic flight or home-built aircraft, these venues may allow you to share your interest through training others. As you gain experience, you may become qualified to train the next generation of CFIs.
Whether outwardly or inwardly, whether in space or time, the farther we penetrate the unknown, the vaster and more marvelous it becomes. Charles Lindbergh.
Through instructing, you're not only teaching students new skills, you're helping them to grow, explore the unknown, and perhaps discover something marvelous.
In teaching others, we teach ourselves. Proverb.
As a flight instructor, you learn volumes about your own knowledge and
That
abilities
citation back
as you
there.
observe your students' errors and analyze their techniques.
As soon as we left the ground, I knew myself that I had to fly. Amelia Earhart.
Each time you lift off the runway with a new student, you can sense the same excitement that Amelia Earhart felt on her first flight. Through your students, you'll experience the joy of discovering flight again.
Okay.
Foundations of learning. Here we go, everyone.
Okay, that's after the second one. And we're done. That's number 2. So now we're going through the definitions that we have in front of your
Learning.
One of the best ways to learn is by doing. When you become a flight instructor, you'll see firsthand how students learn, and you'll discover the best methods to effectively convey your vast amount of aviation wisdom. But you don't have to wait until you're a CFI to get a taste of the teaching experience. Welcome to the world of the flight instructor. You're about to receive a glimpse of the pilot training experience from a CFI's point of view. And you never have to leave the comfort and safety of your home or office. You won't earn any money during this journey into the instructor's realm, but you will gain a wealth of knowledge about learning and teaching that you can apply when your goal of being a CFI becomes a reality. Ah, look, here comes your first student now.
I just got here, so I haven't called flight service yet. I'll go hurry and get a briefing now.
No need to rush. We've got plenty of time. You're doing a great job. It's nice to have a student who's always so organized.
She's been really excited about flying lately. Maybe my compliments have helped. My instructor wasn't very good at that. The only time I knew I was doing something right was when he wasn't criticizing me. Kind of like George over there.
Seems like you understand VOR navigation and holds. So next time, let's do approaches.
So, I did all right?
Yeah, let's go schedule for next week.
Wow, George didn't criticize
I've been
Rick.
there. I
He
think
must
this
have
is
done okay
Denver.
today.
So are we still gonna do stalls next lesson? I'd like to try more steep turns next time. And I also want you to review the procedure for slow flight before we try stalls, okay?
I guess I didn't fly so well this time. You usually tell me how well I'm doing.
Normally you do much better, and it did seem like you were a little distracted.
Carl knew she did something wrong today because Liz didn't compliment her like she usually does.
How many times have I told you to do clearing turns before you practice stalls?
I know, next time.
Or there's going to be a next time. Get somebody. You understand that? All right.
He's gonna quit soon if James keeps acting like that.
What are you looking at?
Sorry.
I better mind my own business and double check what I'm doing with Tara. I wonder how well she understands the briefing.
Well, that looks good, Bob.
So, you think it's a good day to fly?
Willie said that the winds are from 180 at 7 and they're not expected to increase, so landing shouldn't be a problem. There are a few scattered clouds at 10,000 and the visibility is more than 10 miles. Looks like good VFR weather to me. He did say something else about a pirate for light chop at 9,000, and I don't understand that part.
Let me take a look. Well, the briefer was talking about a pilot report. He should have told you where, at what time, and what type of airplane made the report. Yeah, see, you have it here. Over the foothills and at 172 about an hour ago. That shouldn't be a problem for ArcLight.
Okay, so I should go pre-flight then?
Yeah, I'll be out in a couple of minutes.
They're in Denver.
Okay, we're in 241.
Okay.
That looks familiar. That PO. Tag here.
Are most flight schools in a FBO?
I just use that facility as a
Video production place.
in front of Centennial.
I remember when Tara was first learning. She was trying so hard to steer, she missed
Is
every
that
call from the
Denver
ground.
International Airport?
Centennial is a private one.
241.
Now she doesn't have to think about how to taxi, and she never misses a call.
So, to set up for the descent, first reduce the power to about 1500 RPM.
Cessna 241, you're following traffic at 11 o'clock, entering the downwind. Report that traffic in sight.
Why isn't she doing anything? She must be overwhelmed. I better help her out.
I have the controls. Go ahead and answer the tower.
Okay, you have the controls. Tower 241, I have the traffic in sight.
I'll do the approach and landing so you can focus on the procedures. Then, I'll handle the radio so you can practice some landings. How did you feel about the landings today?
The talk we had yesterday really helped. I feel better about being able to correct my mistakes. Plus, I know I can always go around if I need to.
Do you understand what you did on that last landing when you got too slow?
Yeah, I got low and pulled back too much instead of adding power.
Right, you corrected for it, but you added the power a little too late, so the landing was still hard. Just remember, if you're at the right airspeed, pulling back only makes you slower, and you'll lose altitude
Right.
instead of gaining it. You did a good job today. You're getting much better at stabilizing your approach speed. Next
So
time,
what is
I'd
it?
like to see you get the power pulled back just a
All
little
the
sooner.
time
So
compliment.
you're already slowed down and starting to descent. Here, being the numbers.
Okay,
That
Once
constructive
you've got the
wisdom.
traffic pattern and landings down, you'll be able to
Criticism.
solo.
great.
Tell me as soon as you know your schedule next week. We'll need to schedule another lesson as soon as possible so you don't lose anything you've learned today.
I should know this afternoon. I'll call you from work to set up the time. See you later.
Bye.
I hope she's scheduled another lesson soon, or she'll forget what she's learned today. I'll have to spend a lot of time reviewing.
Speaking of review, before your next student arrives, let's back up and examine your day so far. You may be surprised at how many different aspects of learning have already been a part of your morning.
I just got here, so I haven't called flight service yet. I'll go over and get a briefing now.
According to the theory of behaviorism, Tara's habit of getting a weather briefing before every flight is an example of operant behavior. While it's something Tara does voluntarily, it's still a behavior she developed by responding to instructional cues from you during her previous lessons. Positive reinforcement, like your praise of Tara's actions, is normally the best way to strengthen operant behavior. There are less effective ways to reinforce desired behavior in students. You were witness to some of these methods already this morning. Remember George? He's quick to point out when his students do poorly and is reluctant to offer any praise when they do well. His students' motivation to succeed stems from a desire
Negative
to avoid
reinforcement.
criticism. Practicing negative reinforcement. On the other hand, Liz is always eager to praise, but has a hard time addressing mistakes her students make. She doesn't know it, but she's employing a type of reinforcement known as extinction. It's difficult to use extinction in flight training since oftentimes, for safety reasons, you cannot ignore undesired behavior. Finally, the success of punishment to change behavior is often short-lived, and the negative consequences of this type of reinforcement, such as anxiety, fear, or anger in students, can hinder subsequent learning. Your preparation for Tara's lesson illustrates the concepts of shaping and chaining behaviors. You've already developed or shaped Tara's ability to perform basic maneuvers, slow flight, and stalls. Today's lesson combines or chains these maneuvers together to assemble the more complex traffic pattern and landing procedures. Learning isn't just a change in outward behavior, but involves changes in thinking, feeling, and understanding. Cognitive theory involves mental processes such as decision-making and problem-solving, which are difficult to observe or measure.
Well, that looks good, Bob.
Sometimes you need to be proactive to determine whether your students have learned something.
So, you think it's a good day to fly?
By asking Tara for an explanation of the weather briefing, you ensure she truly understands it. Tara's brain gathers, processes, and stores what you teach her through cognitive information processing. First, she receives information through her senses. Then, her brain's sensory register filters out irrelevant data by a process known as attending. The working memory codes the important information by the process of conscious thought. The long-term memory not only stores information for a lifetime, but also performs the function of reconstructing codes in the brain to form memories. Through all the sensory input and concentrates on what's important, she's using a feature of the sensory register called selective attention. Sometimes this causes her to miss information, such as a radio call, when she's performing a new task. However, now that taxiing has become a habit, Tara's sensory register monitors the activity while letting her think about new input. This level of performance is called automaticity.
Automaticity?
While flying the traffic pattern, each new experience is processed by Tara's working memory, then sent to her long-term memory for storage. Tara is not as familiar with the traffic pattern as she is with taxiing, so when she doesn't respond to the tower or to your instructions on downwind, it's because she's overloaded. In this case, her sensory register is taking in all the information, but her working memory can't process all the data. Normally, the working memory can only process 5 to 9 items at any given time.
When you get to the
Tara
point
was
where
better
says,
able to learn when she relinquished the controls to you.
Oh, yeah.
Working memory transfers information to long-term memory by two processes.
Who's Andrew?
Rehearsing and coding.
You got a F-182?
Tara will remember the approach speed by rehearsing, repeating the number until she has it memorized. Relating new information to concepts already in memory is referred to as coding. Tara is using her previous experience flying the airplane at slow speeds
Said he
to
gave us
help her master the traffic pattern.
$450,000 in cash for some land.
When you introduced slow flight and stalls in the practice area, you emphasized how these maneuvers apply to approach and landing.
Airplane's probably worth 200.
Tara's experience during flying lessons is an excellent example of constructivism.
The last one he had.
This learning concept is based on the idea that individuals construct knowledge through the process of discovery as they experience events and actively seek to understand their environment. When you first mentioned landing practice to Tara, she was hesitant. Her initial perception of landings was affected by her fear of an accident. Perceptions, which occur when meaning is given to sensations, are the basis for all learning. Time spent discussing the aerodynamics of landing and analyzing the risks involved, coupled with extensive slow flight and stall training, has helped Tara overcome her fear and form a more accurate perception of landing. The element of threat or fear that Tara felt about landings is an example of just one of the factors that may affect the ability of your students to form the correct perceptions. Another student, Chuck, is colorblind. A person who has limited abilities with one or more senses perceives differently than someone who doesn't. When basic needs, such as hunger and rest, aren't met, perceptions are altered as well. You need to suggest to Jennifer that she should schedule lessons earlier in the day, since she is typically very tired after work. A student's self-image also has a great influence on the perceptual process. Learning is enhanced when the student's experiences support a positive self-image. Mark is much too hard on himself. You must encourage him more, or he may quit taking lessons. Greg was devastated by poor performance during his last lesson, and he's worried about his ability to fly well enough to pursue a career as a pilot. Letting him know his mistakes are typical and easy to overcome can improve his perceptions of training. Porter doesn't schedule lessons often enough, so her progress has been very slow. Time to experience the learning event and the opportunity to build upon prior knowledge are important in formulating the proper perceptions. One of your primary responsibilities as an instructor is to help your students group perceptions together to form insights. Gain insights without your input, but sometimes they reach the wrong conclusions.
Yeah, I got low and pulled back too much instead of adding power.
For example, since climb practice typically involves the use of high power settings, students may assume that gaining altitude can be accomplished solely by pitching up. Tara's initial reaction when she was low on final may have been a result of this perception. However, your discussions and demonstrations, as well as practice of slow flight, help Tara gain the proper insights about operating at slow airspeeds, allowing her to realize her mistake and correct it by adding power.
You know,
Tara's flight went well today. You've accomplished little if she doesn't retain
the
the new
numbers on it, like
information
a
and
pro,
skills she
all
learned.
stock pro or whatever.
You may
top
not even
fuel
realize
extra.
it, but to help
Or not,
Tara
it's, you
remember
know,
what was covered, you employed
like,
several principles
horsepower
of
per
retention
pound is
during this
more than
lesson. For example,
fighter, I
you
mean, it's
associated
just
the
a-
tracking pattern and landing procedures with other maneuvers she's performed in the past. By practicing several landings in a row, Tara benefited from meaningful repetition. However, while repetition definitely aids retention, some research indicates that 3 or full repetition maximum effect, after which the rate of learning and probability of retention fall off rapidly. You should keep this in mind when planning lessons. During your debriefing, you praised Tara's performance.
You did a good job today. You're getting much better at stabilizing your approach speed.
And offered her encouragement for the next lesson's practice.
Next time, I'd like to see you get the power pulled back just a little sooner. So you're already slowed down and starting to descent. Here, I've being the numbers.
Okay.
When you pointed out how this practice leads to the first solo, you provided her with motivation
Once
to
you get the
remember.
traffic pattern and landings down, you'll be able to solo.
Great.
Finally, flight lessons inherently aid recall since they involve learning with all the senses. Even if Tara's brain successfully processed today's experience into long-term memory, the information can be forgotten due to disuse.
Any questions?
The more time that passes between the learning event and the attempted retrieval, the more likely the event will be forgotten. The information is still in the brain, but over time, the neural pathways break down between the various cells that store memories. And additional practice, the pathways should return. In addition to disuse, there are other reasons that Tara may forget elements of what she learned today. For example, interference occurs when material is forgotten because a separate experience has overshadowed it, or when the learning of similar things has intervened. If Tara were to fly with a friend over the weekend in a different model of airplane, she may confuse some of the procedures with those she learned today. Now that Tara's lesson is completed, you can turn your attention to your next student, Chad.
Okay, thanks, Ken. See you in about 15 minutes.
How about?
How's it going, Chad?
Can't complain. We going over systems today?
Yeah. Did you get a chance to read your assignment?
Yeah, I read all of chapter 11 and I read the articles you gave me about turboprop and jet engines. They were pretty interesting.
That's good. Instead of doing ground school, I set it up so we could go over to the hangar to look at a variety of airplanes while they're being worked on. That was great.
Jet engines.
Chad's gonna like this. He gets to ask
That's what it
questions
said.
and have some hands-on experience.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what the hell it says. Lesson 2. Is this commercial? What is
Hey,
that?
Ken. Hey, Bob. How's it going? Oh, pretty good.
No,
Good.
that's his
I'd
lesson.
like you to
two.
meet my student, Chad.
Chad, nice to meet you.
Hi. Can we take a look at what you're working on?
Well, sure. I just got through repairing the throttle cable in the 172. Well, things broke off during a run-up yesterday, and they went to full throttle.
It's a good thing that happened during run-up. What would have happened if it broke during flight?
Well, basically, it did what it's designed to do, and I can show you here with this little carburetor. Typical carburetor has a throttle control lever, and this is where the cable would attach to. You got a throttle plate, and you can see that this would be the idle position, and there's full throttle. When the cable broke, though, it's designed so that spring-loaded goes all the way to full throttle.
That's a good design.
So, do you think you got something out of talking to Ken and looking at the airplane?
Yeah, it was great to see how everything fit together. I think I understand carburetors, but I have a question about fuel injection.
Here, let's look it up so we can see a diagram.
He likes to think of things as pieces and then put them together to understand the whole. This type of diagram works well for Chad.
See, this might help. It breaks down the injection system. So, if the engine went to full power during flight, what would you do?
Well, if I move the throttle and nothing happens, I'd have to prepare for a no-power landing at the airport. Before I land, I'd have to use the mixture to shut down the engine.
He always takes the time to think things out. Oh, our time is almost up.
Oh, darn.
Let's turn back the clock for a moment to look more closely at your time spent with Chad today. To learn most effectively, students must see a purpose in what they're doing. Chad is intent upon making aviation his career, so he has a different motivation for learning than Tara, who regards flying as a hobby. Understanding these motivations helps you tailor lessons to your students' goals. In addition to being purposeful, several distinct characteristics of learning have become the standard. For example, learning is the result of experience. As an instructor, you're the facilitator that guides students through the learning experiences you create. To be an active process, learning must involve reading, writing, discussing, thinking, and doing. The trip to the maintenance hangar illustrates how many facets there are to learning. This experience involves many types of learning, such as verbal, conceptual, and problem solving. In addition to labeling characteristics of learning, researchers also have identified 6 principles of learning that provide a foundation for basic instructional techniques. You may not have realized it, but during your lesson with Chad, you took advantage of each of these principles. By going over the POH and discussing advanced systems, you effectively prepared Chad to expand his knowledge of systems as he visited the maintenance hangar. Repeating information also serves to increase his retention of the material. This lesson has built upon Chad's interest in systems and his goal of pursuing an aviation career. Discussing troubleshooting scenarios helps him take what he's learning and apply it to the flight environment. Having his questions answered by an A&T ensures Chad learns information correctly the first time. Frequent quizzing about systems during subsequent ground lessons and practicing emergency procedures in flight will keep the material fresh in Chad's mind. Up to this point in your day, you've explored theories that can apply to most any instructional situation and to most any learner. But to truly be an effective teacher, you must do more than apply general learning theories to your instruction. You must see your students as individuals and understand that each of them absorbs information in a unique way. Exploring learning styles and domains can help you accomplish this goal. For example, Chad likes to think of things as pieces and then put them together to understand the whole. This bottom-up strategy is a serialist approach. Tara, on the other hand, is considered a holist since she looks at the overall picture first and then at individual parts. A top-down approach. Chad and Tara's learning styles differ in other respects as well. Chad exhibits left brain dominance. He's verbal, analytical, and objective. The left hemisphere of the brain specializes in linear information processing by identifying and isolating individual parts of a whole. Right brain individuals, like Tara, are more creative, intuitive, and emotional. They may be very good with art or music and can easily put together the big picture. While Chad considers his options, his reflective nature can sometimes cause problems. For example, when taking a test, Chad sometimes cannot finish in time, or he may overanalyze questions and change answers from right to wrong. Tara, on the other hand, is somewhat impulsive. During emergency landing practice, she tends to pick the first field available and overlook more suitable options. In addition to the learning styles that apply to how students process information, there are learning styles based upon the dominant sense involved in the learning process. Auditory, kinesthetic, or visual. Tara learns primarily by listening. Chad by doing. And your next student, Mike, by watching. You can tailor your teaching to accommodate all three of these learning styles.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Bob.
I'll be with you in just a minute. Chad, why don't you schedule the 182 tomorrow at 9?
All right, I'll see you tomorrow.
See ya. So, are you ready to try an ILS today?
Well, I studied the charts you gave me, and I think I understand the procedures, but actually implementing them is going to be a whole other thing.
We'll give it a shot.
All right.
Let's check out the simulator.
I hope he can apply what he's learned so far. He had a hard time when we first started practicing VOR and MDB approaches.
Your airspeed looks good, Mike. What do you need to do next?
Well, when I hit Cassie, I need to intercept the localizer outbound.
And what altitude do you need to be at?
I should be at 8,000 when I hit Cassie.
Actually, you need to stay at 9,000 until you're done with the procedure turn. Take a look at your approach plate.
I've pulled this approach 3 times now, and I still can't seem to stay on altitude.
Well, let's take a break and just practice some altitude and heading changes. Then we'll try this approach again.
He's a little overwhelmed trying to put together all the new procedures. Maybe trying something else for a while will help. I'll give him a pattern to fly that like the approach.
So, are you ready to try that approach again?
Sure.
I hope practicing those patterns helps.
I feel much better about the approach now.
Yeah, you did great. You held your altitude well that last time, and you stayed on the localizer pretty much the whole way. Let's take a look at what we're going to do tomorrow. I'd like to do the same approach that we shot today, but in the airplane.
Well, when we shoot this approach for real, won't we be getting radar vectors rather than doing the procedure turn?
Yeah, but when we practice it in the airplane, let's do it with the procedure turn first, then we'll ask for vectors to the final.
Remember approach?
Yeah, they have a specific frequency for practice approaches.
Great, I'll see you tomorrow.
See ya. Hello?
Hi, this is Kristen Ozzie. We talked last week about flying lessons.
I remember.
Well, I'd like to schedule that intro flight tomorrow if you still have the time.
Sure. Would you like to meet me at the FBO, say at 1700Z? I'll call flight service and get a briefing to the practice area before we go up.
What?
Stop, rewind, try again.
Way to go,
Hawk
Hawk
A building
Ears.
called TAC Air. It's south of the tower. You'll see signs for it as you drive into the airport.
A little,
That's for me the first counter you see when you walk in the door. There'll be a sign over the counter that says Wings Aviation. I'll check to see if the weather is good for our flight. And if it isn't, I'll give you a call by 8 o'clock.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part. My phone must be cutting out.
I was just saying that I'll check and make sure the weather is okay. I'll call you by 8 o'clock if it isn't.
That sounds good.
I'll see you tomorrow then.
Okay, thanks. See you tomorrow.
Hey, Bob.
Oh, hey, Brent.
Hey, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
The other day when I was out flying, I noticed the low voltage light come on. I think I did the right thing, but I wanted to check with you. I remember a story you told in class once about a similar situation that had happened to you.
Yeah, well, that was back in my less experienced days. I actually did the wrong thing at first. We were over the mountains and I noticed a discharge in the ammeter before I saw the light. So I had no idea how long we were running on battery power. That wasn't the smartest thing to do. So I didn't have any radios by the time we got back to the airport.
Well, I shut everything off once I noticed the light come on, so I did have radios by the time I got back to the airport. But I guess I could have recycled the master switch.
Yeah, you should have done that first. You might have been able to reset the alternator, but it sounded like you handled everything okay.
All right, thanks for your help.
Sure, anytime.
Oops, I'm running behind schedule. I better get going.
Whoa, stop. Before you head to your class, take some time to reflect on the rest of your morning. By examining Mike's lesson in the simulator, you can easily identify the 4 basic levels of learning traditionally included in aviation instructor training. The first level is rote
Actually, it's
learning.
gotta be more now.
This is the simple memorization of information without the understanding or ability to apply what has been learned.
Rote learning.
Mike can identify the symbols on the approach chart by rote
Short
learning.
term.
The next level, understanding, is the ability to explain the how and why of facts. How do the chart symbols apply to flying the approach? Application is the act of putting your knowledge into practical use. Mike uses his knowledge to perform an ILS approach in the simulator. Is associating what has been learned, understood, and applied with previous or subsequent learning. The goal of your instruction is for Mike to associate all the information he's learned about instrument procedures with operating effectively in actual IFR conditions. In addition to the 4 learning levels, psychologists have developed 3 domains of learning: cognitive, psychomotor, and affective.
Yep, effective.
You can create lesson objectives that focus
Tendency,
on one
primacy,
or
and
more of these
recency.
domains. The cognitive domain is the category of learning concerned with knowledge and thought processes, such as studying instrument approach procedures. The psychomotor domain applies to hands-on learning skills, such as pre-flighting an airplane, performing a landing, or flying an instrument approach. The affective domain focuses on feelings, attitudes, personal beliefs, and values. Be aware that students normally experience a learning plateau at some point during their training. In Mike's case, he's trying to master new skills, so he must learn to divide his attention to perform many tasks at the same time. Some students experience a learning plateau if they've reached capability limits or if they misunderstand some aspect of the task. A lack of motivation can also curb learning. If you believe your student has reached a plateau, you may need to try a different teaching method to help increase progress. If having Mike fly the patterns you developed helps him to perform the approach better, a positive transfer of learning has occurred. On the other hand, if previous learning interferes with understanding of the current task, a negative transfer of learning takes place. When you exchange ideas with your students, you've participated in the communication process. Your post-flight discussion with Mike provides a way to look at some of the primary elements involved in this process. During this interaction, you're the source of the communication. Mike is the receiver, and the words and illustrations you use are the symbols that convey the message.
Let's take a look at what we're going to do tomorrow.
Well, when we shoot this approach for real, won't we be getting radar vectors rather than doing the procedure turn?
Yeah, when we practice it,
The feedback Mike provides is very important because it helps you determine whether he understands your message. If Mike doesn't provide you with enough feedback, you should ask for it.
Great, I'll see you tomorrow.
While your discussion with Mike was very productive, your initial conversation with your new student, Kristen, was less effective.
Hello?
Hi, this is Kristen Ossie. We spoke last week about flying lessons.
I remember.
Well, I'd like to schedule that intro flight tomorrow if you still have the time.
Sure. Would you like to meet me at the FBO, say at 1700Z? I'll call flight service and get a briefing for the practice area before we go up.
What?
So what was wrong with this conversation? It was hindered by several barriers to effective communication. As a new student with a lack of aviation experience, Kristen does not understand terms that are second nature to you, such as FBO, Zulu time, or flight service. Also, Kristen misinterpreted some of your words. For example, when you mentioned the briefing for the practice area, she was confused and concluded that you were talking about familiarizing yourself with the subject area you were going to practice on the flight. In addition, meet me at the FBO is too abstract. There are no specifics as to where Kristen should look for you in the building or whether she needs to ask for you at a particular place. Your second attempt at communicating with Kristen was much more effective.
Meet me at 9 o'clock in the building called TAC Air. It's south of the tower. You'll see signs for it as you drive into the airport. Ask for me at the first counter you see when you walk in the door. There'll be a sign over the counter that says Wings Aviation. I'll check to see for our flight. If it isn't, I'll call by 8 o'clock.
Still, there was a problem with the
I'm
exchange.
sorry, I didn't hear that last part. My phone must be cutting out.
I was just saying that I'll
The
check to make
trouble
sure
with
the weather
the
is
phone
okay.
is an example of interference. Often interference is beyond your direct control. However, there may be times when you can lessen its impact. For example, in the noisy cockpit environment, headsets can eliminate some interference. Communication skills need to be developed, practiced, and continually improved upon. Discussing your own experiences with your students, as you did with Brent, can enhance instructional communication.
Yeah, well, that was back in my less experienced days. I actually did the wrong thing at first. See, we were over the mountains and I noticed a discharge on the ammeter before I saw the light.
Listening is the most frequently used communication skill, yet it remains the least mastered. You can help your students make the transition from simply hearing to effectively listening by suggesting they take steps such as taking notes or focusing on the main ideas in a discussion.
Well, I shut everything off once I noticed the light come on, so I did have radios by the time I got back to the airport. But I guess I could have recycled the master switch.
Not only do you need to help your students develop effective listening skills, but you need to develop and practice your own listening skills as well. For example, avoid rehearsing answers while listening and don't insist on the last word. From early morning flights to afternoons in the classroom, you've had the opportunity to briefly delve into the flight instructor's universe. You've witnessed the learning process from a perspective that may soon become very familiar to you as a CFI with a full schedule of students. Once you're a full-fledged flight instructor, you'll reap rewards above and beyond the monetary compensation, such as the satisfaction of seeing your students achieve. And likewise, your students will undoubtedly benefit from not only your aviation expertise, but also from your extensive knowledge of how they learn.
All right. What a great video. Any questions, anybody? Clay?
Well, it's definitely a lot to learn.
That's for sure.
I mean, that's a double entendre. You know, learning is what we're trying to learn about.
Yeah.
And how different people learn different things.
Okay.
Differently.
All right, so we'll go over the questions then.
Okay.
Question 1, define learning. Do you know, Clay?
Learning is the ability to recall an experience.
Yeah. Learning is defined as a persistent change of behavior resulting from experience which environment has changed, which cannot be at truth. There you go. All right, number 2, give the example of each type of reinforcement that can be used with students. Identify which type is normally the most effective in helping students learn. Well, we got first one is positive reinforcement, punishment, negative reinforcement, and extinction. So obviously the best one out of those is probably, what would you say, Clay?
Positive.
Positive reinforcement,
Yep.
Exactly. That is usually the most successful approach to learning. 3, true or false? Cognitive theory involves a mental process such as decision making and problem solving, which is difficult to observe or measure. The answer is true.
Mm-hmm.
It is. So, 4, provide an example of a situation in which a student is performing at a level of automaticity.
When they're doing an approach and they're communicating over the radio, All right, we're back.
We're back live here in cool air, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. On to number 6 of the questions. What learning theory is based upon the idea that learners build knowledge through the process of discovering as they experience events and actively seek to understand the environment? At A, behaviorism, B, constructive criticism, C, cognitive learning.
Cognitive.
The answer is B, constructivism. Constructivism.
So you construct the events, pieces together.
That's correct. All right, 7, list at least 4 elements that can affect students' perception.
Motion.
Okay, we got physical, organisms, basic needs, goals, and values, self-concept, time, opportunity, and elements of threat can all change. All right. 8, describe at least 2 reasons why students can't forget material.
They don't study.
They never, that's one of them. They don't go over the material. They don't process the information to long-term memory.
Emotionally, maybe they're
emotional, exactly.
And
elements of threat. You don't really take it in. Just forgot what's going on. They're focused on one thing. And
did it say 5 things was the max? The person could kind of simultaneously.
Yep. Take it at one time. So yeah, very good. Incidental learning occurs when a student learns things in addition to the material covered in the lesson.
True.
Absolutely. Pretty straightforward there. All right, so last part here, 10 through 15. It takes match the following statements to a principle of learning that represents. Here are the 5 options. Readiness, there's actually 6 options. Readiness, primacy, recency, effect, intensity, and exercise. So the first one is, Kristen found that she learned more by practicing simulated emergencies procedures in the airplane with her instructor than reading about them in a textbook.
Exercising.
So the first, number 10 would go with E, intensity. The intensity of the situation was what caused her to learn more than just reading about it.
Sure. Okay.
Number 11, after reviewing the of an IELTS approach procedures during a pre-flight briefing, it was easy for Pat to follow the approach during the lesson. So they just cover the information and when they're going to shout the approach. So out of readiness, primacy, recency, effect, or
recency.
Recency.
Right.
They just covered it. Now they're flying it.
Yep.
And it's obviously right in their memory, short term. 12, Laura was excited about learning ground reference maneuvers because of her instructor explained that these procedures would help her prepare to follow the traffic pattern. So out of readiness, primacy, effect, and exercise, which one do you think that one might be?
Exercise.
Readiness.
Readiness.
She was ready, excited to learn these because of the process.
Yep.
13, the student had fun during a class session in which she played roles as a flight crew member to practice crew coordination and decision making. So we have
exercise,
effect.
Effect.
We'll get them down.
I'm not really doing the good on this part.
Effect is the answer for that one. 14, after practicing the Shondells 4 times, Chad felt very comfortable with the maneuver and was able to remember the procedure during the last lesson.
Exercise.
That one is exercise.
Yes.
Excellent. And the last one is primacy. This is an example. Jeff always remembered the checklist during the pre-flight because it was one of the first things the instructor emphasized during his first lesson. So,
First thing is primacy.
Correct. Well, that pretty much wraps up the section 1, A and B. So we'll see you next time. Thanks.